Hey ho, dear ones. We are in part 5 of our 5-part series exploring your various and sundry intuitive languages. And this series has deep dived into your intuition as one of your 5 key spiritual gifts that enables you to communicate with the spiritual realm. Learning and expanding your intuitive languages is a key and essential aspect of communicating with your higher self, source, and spirit guides at higher and more sophisticated levels. In parts 1 through 4, we explored how to clarify your dominant and developing intuitive languages, your bodily intuitive touch points, and how your intuition relates to your human design strategy. If you haven't yet, I recommend checking those episodes out, and we'll leave links in the show notes. Today, we're exploring how to decode the signs and symbols your intuition is sending you all the time. I have to say my voice is a little bit wonky, so apologies in advance if it sounds a little raspy. And before we get into everything, I'd love to share a quick and sweet listener review from Erica Fotes, who is talking about the episode I recorded with my dad titled Coming Out of the Spiritual Closet. And she says, "What a lovely, brave episode." I really felt like it was both lovely and brave. So I really appreciate you reflecting that back. Thank you so much. If you haven't had a chance to check out that episode, we'll also link in the show notes. If you have a family member or a loved one that you'd like to be more open with regarding all of your spiritual gifts, then that episode may be helpful for you. All right. Let's get back to those signs and symbols. They're everywhere, and see what we can do to decode. In today's episode, I reveal the types of signs and symbols our intuitions often rely upon, how to recognize when one is arriving to you, and how to retrieve the deeper messages. We'll end on an invitation that will have you recognizing and receiving with clarity the deeper, more profound messages that your higher self is sending you each and every day so you can live in higher and higher alignment. So please stay with me until the end. Hello, Soul Guide Circle. That is the name of this global and growing community of soul-guided leaders and entrepreneurs. In the Soul Guide Circle, we are using our spiritual gifts to grow prosperous, heart-led businesses that are on the leading edge of consciousness. Find a link to join our closed Facebook group at AllisonScampbell.com or in the show notes. Today, we're talking about decoding the signs and symbols your intuition is sending you. So let's start with the types of signs and symbols. Now, to be clear, crystal clear, the types of signs and symbols that your intuition can send you is limitless. There's no definitive list, and there's no list that encompasses everything, because there's literally an infinite number of ways that your intuition could try to communicate with you. But what we're doing in this series is we're distilling it down to what is most relied upon, what most people experience, so you can start to recognize it for yourself to get more and more sophisticated. And as you do that, of course, like with all things in the spiritual realm, you're open as possible for all the ways that your intuition communicates with you that I might not have even mentioned in this series, okay? So it's not to be narrow that it must be this way. It's just offering you ideas and suggestions that may be occurring in your life that you could be missing. And really with the idea to open up your aperture to all the ways, the many, many, many ways your higher self speaks to you each and every day. So the first thing that I would mention is numbers. The angelic realm speaks in numbers. I am not an expert on this, and I'm not going to go through the numbers. You know, you look at the clock and it says 11:11, and that's a time to make a wish. I know that the 2 22 22, so when it's like 10:22 at night, which is 22:22, whenever I look at the clock and I see those numbers, I know that there's an angel present. And I just like take a pause whenever I see 22:22. And I just take in a deep breath. I communicate a lot with my clients and peers and friends via Voxer. And so that's a voice messaging app. And I am astounded by the number of messages that get left for me that are exactly 2 minutes and 22 seconds long. An angel number 222 signifies good fortune and finances, so that's always nice, relationships, and as well as it's a little reminder to work towards your soul purpose. So it's just a little alignment cue, like 222 is showing up. So maybe there's something out of alignment that is trying to get your attention so that you can get back into that alignment of abundance and love and purpose. I notice in my life that 222 or 2222 number shows up quite a bit. And whenever it does, it is a time for me to pause and ask and check in. And if everything feels in good order, I use it as the opportunity to just feel some gratitude. Gratitude for the angels and gratitude for all the love and abundance in my life. And it's just an opportunity to raise my energetic frequency. People. The people in your life are giving you all sorts of messages. If you're a parent, your kids are just little messengers of spirit. If your kids are giving you a particular challenge, usually there's a message in there for you from the divine. It's not random and it's not here just to make your life challenging. If you're a parent of smaller children or were in the past, you experienced this when your children were small, interruptions of sleep in the middle of the night. If you had kids that like to tap on your shoulder at 3 a.m., they were likely little messengers of spirit waking you up in the middle of the night, because that's when a lot of the deepest spiritual work happens. That's when we are in the best energy, often, not always, to heal. Sometimes spirit actually wants to get us really, really tired to help some things release or to help some certain messages come in because your guards are down when you get very tired. So there are reasons why our little angels in our lives, who aren't always feeling like angels, show up and do things to challenge us. So if you relate to this, think about some of the biggest challenges you've experienced from your kids in your life or recently, and just inquire, was there a message or is there a message to me in this from spirit? But it's not just your kids. It can be random people on the street. It can be work co-workers. It can be your partner. When they do or say something or show up in a certain way, they are often unknowingly giving you something you need on a soul level. And there's often a message there from something they've said or the behavior. And I'm going to be talking about in just a second how to recognize when a sign or symbol or a message is arriving from numbers or another person, etc. Animals can be a sign or a symbol arriving. I mean, maybe in your walks in the forest, you keep running into the same type of bird. I had a soul client who just kept having birds show up and birds flying around her and birds flying into her car, and the celestial animals of the sky were just arriving left, right, and center into her experience. So they were trying to get her a message. Maybe you keep getting visions of a snow leopard, or, my spirit animal is the bison. And sometimes I will see bison, 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 bison. And I know that the bison have a message for me. The spirit animal of the buffalo has a message for me. And that's when I stop to ask, what is the message you're trying to send me? So just notice if a particular animal keeps showing up into your experience. And next, I'm just going to say symbols. So any type of symbol, a heart is a symbol, the peace sign. I mean, there's so many ancient symbols, anything that would be an image or design that symbolizes something. And so that's very vague, but this really is an invitation really to just pay attention. Pay attention to what is arriving in your manifest reality. And so how do we do that? How do we recognize when it's a symbol trying to get you a message or it's just happenstance, it's just coincidence? Well, listen, I don't believe in coincidence on any level. I believe everything that is in our experience has some purpose, and we manifested it for a divine reason. Now, are we meant to spend our days inquiring the significance of everything we see, the eraser in front of us, the bowl of fruit on our kitchen table? No, we would never get anything done. However, nothing is random. Nothing is really without meaning. So if you have something in your manifest reality that you sense might have a message for you, and if you pause to ask, it is highly likely that there is indeed a message for you. Now, maybe it's a message coming through and you're missing the bigger message. Now, we don't always tune into the right things, but if you stop and ask, and if you keep stopping and asking when you feel called, when you feel like it's something significant, you're eventually going to get to those big, juicy messages and downloads that are trying to reach you. Listen, I literally see the number 222 or 2222 all the time. I see it so often. In fact, I don't always stop to ask because I see it so often. But at the very least, I pause for gratitude. If I'm in the middle of something and I don't have the time for inquiry, I at least, at the very, very, very least, use it as an opportunity for gratitude. But even as I'm just talking to you right now, I'm getting the clarity that whenever I see that number, I need to do more than pause. And if I'm busy in the moment it's arriving, that's okay. I need to make a mental note or write it down to return to it later, because there is likely a bigger message there for me, which is why the number is showing up. So notice the symbols, the numbers, the people, the animals, the whatever that's showing up in your life, especially if they show up in these ways. Something or someone or a symbol shows up and it just stays with you. Listen, I have this right now so I'm just going to share it with you. I am reading a book of one of my teachers that I follow. She just published a new book and I just read it, and there's a word in it that I didn't understand what it meant. And it was a really big statement. And I don't even remember the word right now because it's not really important for the purposes of this. And I don't want to even say, because I don't want to say which spiritual teacher. It's not relevant. What's relevant is there was this word. It was a word in chemistry. And it's like the evolution of the planet is going to be subject to Flüberflaben. I don't know. I made that word up over the next 3 years. And this is the most important thing for you to know. So she was kind of like, it was a big statement and it was this chemistry word. And I looked the word up and I read it and I still had no idea what she meant. Like, I'd never heard of the word before. It didn't make sense to me. And it definitely didn't make sense in the spiritual context. I'm part of a discussion group with this spiritual teacher. And I even went to the discussion group and said, hey, does anybody know what this word means in this context of evolution? And nobody really knew. People were guessing, but nobody really knew. But this word keeps coming back to me. I know that there's a message in this word for the spiritual teacher. And I don't even think it's like, hey, don't use words that people don't understand. It's not that. There's something deeper in this word for me, I'm getting a yes to, and for her. Now, I don't have a personal relationship with this person, but I do have a personal relationship with someone who works with her. So I've been hemming and hawing about this, but now that I'm talking this through in this episode, and I'm a projector. Projectors, we need sounding boards. And sometimes when we just talk things through, we get the answers we need. So as I talk this through with you, and thank you for listening, I'm going to reach out to my friend who works for the spiritual teacher and say, look, I have this intuitive hit about this word and I can't shake it. It has just stayed with me. And it's my intuition speaking to me, telling me that there's something there. This word, it just keeps coming back. And it keeps coming back that I want to reach out to the author of the book to say, I don't know, I have to formulate my thought, but there is a message in there, an important one about this word. And there's something deeper in here. Maybe I think what she needs to do as I project her soundboard with you, I think that what she has done is she's really seized on something critically important for the evolution of consciousness, and she needs to unpack it. And she needs to share, or we are inviting her. She doesn't need to do anything. We are inviting her to unpack exactly what this means, because I think there's a lot of really juicy information inside this one word. And so this is a word that I would call a sign that arrived to me the second I read it, and it just wouldn't go away. It was a gnawing, nagging, there's something here. And so it's now culminating with me talking it through with you, and I'm gonna take action on reaching out to my friend who works for her. And if it doesn't go any farther than that, then at least I did what I could do. We can only do what we can do. We can only pass the message on. We can't force anybody to do anything with our intuitive insights, but at least I'll know that I've done all that I can do. And then I can also explore what else is in there for me. And maybe this is something in this word that I'm really meant to teach as part of my spiritual teachings to my audience. Okay. So the other way to recognize that a sign or a symbol is trying to reach you is you get a strong emotional response. A strong emotional response. And it just happened to me this morning. So as you probably know, I have a greyhound. It is a Spanish greyhound. They're called galgos. And galgos are one of the most abused breed of dog in the world. So if you see someone with a galgo, it's almost a 99.9% chance that galgo is a rescue. And there's something I call galgo code. When I see someone walking a galgo, I get so excited and I have to go talk to them. And maybe I'm walking my galgo too, so we have to go galgo to galgo and the sniff, sniff, sniff. Or I have to at least tell them, oh my gosh, I have a galgo too. Now, 90% of the time, let's go 95% of the time, the other galgo owner is very excited to meet me. About 5% of the time, the person looks at me and says, yeah, so, like kind of the energy of like, I don't really care. And that always just hurts my heart a little bit because they obviously didn't get the memo about galgo code that they need to be as excited as I am. Well, anyway, galgo code was kicked in this morning where I saw a woman walking a galgo. I beelined it over to her and oh my God, it was so sweet. My galgo and her galgo started crying. They were so happy to see each other. Galgos love encountering other galgos on average. Some galgos are very traumatized from abuse, so they don't have that kind of response. But galgos in their natural healthy state typically love encountering other galgos. So they were having this love fest, and I started talking to this woman, and she was very lovely. And we just had this really lovely exchange over the dogs. And then as she left, she said, and I said to her, look, I walk Astrid through these dunes all the time. Maybe I'll see you again. And she said, yes, me too. That would be lovely. And as she was walking away, she said, I'm Jacqueline. And I said, I'm Allison. And we walked away. And you might be thinking, okay, Allison, who cares? Listen, when she said, I'm Jacqueline, that hit me so powerfully. And when I was walking away, I just teared up from this strong emotional response. And the reason why is because I live in the Netherlands and I love it here. This is a lovely, lovely place. I will only ever say that I love it here. I love the culture. I love the food. I love the way of life. I love it all. And as an immigrant, I'm not an expat here. I'm an immigrant. It can feel very lonely and isolating. I can feel completely invisible by my neighbors in my community. I can feel completely unseen. It's not even unaccepted, because when you're unaccepted, there's some idea that maybe there's the potential for a relationship, but you're not getting accepted into the relationship. I almost feel like there is no potential for a relationship, so there's nothing to unaccept. It's just straight up unseen. And that is my experience. That's all I can say. And that has been a tough cookie to crack. I have worked really hard to create my own networks, my own communities, my own friends, and little by little, I have been quite successful in doing so. But, and I should say, my husband is from Boston. He grew up in a big city. So this type of distance between people doesn't really bother him. It bothers him a little bit, but not nearly as much as it gets to me, as I grew up on a family farm in South Dakota where people are just intrinsically kind and friendly and helpful and how are you? And it's the most normal thing in the world to say, hi, I'm Allison. But here, it's not. It's just different. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just explaining a phenomenon as I experience it. And when she said, I'm Jacqueline, I felt seen by her. I felt community from her. I felt kindness. I felt connection from someone who was a stranger, but was from part of my community, so we weren't strangers. And I realized how empty my well was for those things. And I realized how important those things are to me. And there's a piece of me that really suffers when I don't have that. So it was this huge intuitive message that I need to look at that and decide what's best for me in the long term. You know, maybe this means a relocation because it's just too important for me. Or maybe there's other ways I can get it from where I am that I haven't been seeing. Maybe I can give it to myself in ways that I haven't been giving it to myself. So I'm getting a yes to that. So I can really find that more from within. So my head is shaking yes to that. But listen, that strong emotional response I got from something so simple, that's another sign that there's a message for you, told me that there is deep spiritual meaning here trying to get through. Okay, here is another big, big, big sign that something is trying to get to you, a divine message. And that is it keeps coming back or it keeps coming up. So if you keep seeing the number, let's say you keep seeing the number 72 and you see it over and over and over, there is a message for you. And the more you see it, the more important it is, in the sense that maybe your higher self is like, dude, how many times do we have to send you 72 to get your attention? So it is in the repetition. If it keeps coming up, there is a message. And this brings us nicely to how to retrieve the deeper messages. Well, I just demonstrated how to do that. First, you notice. And if you can't go into inquiry in the moment, give yourself a little mental note, but write it down. Put it in your reminder app on your phone to come back to it. I know some of this sounds kind of basic, but really, how often does something happen and you're like, whoa, that was crazy. I just saw the number 72 for the 50th time this week. And then you're I have a million things on my to-do list, so I'm just going to drive on. We all do it. So really set the intention that when you have a sign or a symbol that keeps coming back, that just stays with you, that has given you a strong emotional response, that you will take a minute to do some inquiry and ask the question, what message is trying to arrive to me? Some of you in your human design types are going to be that talking it through sounding board. If you have ego authority or self-projected authority, if you're a projector, you'll just talking it through to a trusted source. And you, dear listener, have been my trusted source for today, will help you get to a response. Some of you, journaling can be quite helpful and just writing it out. Some of you, it's walking in nature and just going through a time of intercontemplation. For some of you, it's meditation, and you consider a question as you meditate. So it starts with noticing the sign or symbol that's arriving. Then you go to inquiry. And the best way to approach inquiry is through my 5-step process for connecting to your intuition. And that's step 1, deep breathing. Step 2, pivot your awareness down and connect to your heart energy at the center of your chest. Step 3, set the intention to connect to your higher self or source or spirit guide or whatever higher consciousness you're connecting to. In the case of general communication with the intuition, I do recommend always connecting to higher self first. And then step 4 is ask questions. This is the inquiry. This sets off the co-creative process so that your higher self can get you the answers that you need and that you seek. So to go back to this example of I'm Jacqueline and it triggered this huge emotional response, well, I already did the inquiry into something that's going on with me at a deeper level that I didn't really realize. And that brings me to this question I'm going to ask my higher self, which is, what are you calling me to do or be to forge a deeper sense of community and human-to-human connection within my local environment? Now, had I not run into Jacqueline this morning, I wouldn't have arrived at this important question I'm being called to ask. And had I just walked away from that conversation and been like, that's funny that I had such a strong emotional response. Oh, okay. All right, well, let me go back to my to-do list now and go on to my day. If I hadn't paused to do the inquiry and exploration, I wouldn't have gotten to the important question my higher self is calling me to ask. And then that brings us nicely to step 5 of the 5-step process to connect to your intuition. And that is perceiving what you're receiving coming back in response. And so what I perceive in this moment from my higher self, I'm getting the message, I don't need the people around me. I can forge this sense of community in any moment. And I have lots of people who deeply love me around the planet. And that is true. I have amazing friends around the planet who I'm so deeply connected to. So focus on those folks. Focus on the network I already have. They don't need to be local. And follow my projector strategy. And the local folks, who live near me, they will find me And they are finding me. I am making a local network here for myself little by little, and they will find me at the right time and in the right way, following my projector strategy, which is to wait for the invitation. And I'm being called not to push it, force it, resist it, and really being resisting against the divine timing. And I don't need anyone in my local community to give me a deep sense of community or human-to-human connection. I can have that at any moment and follow my human design strategy. Oh, that feels good. That feels so good. That feels so right. I feel so much relief. Oh, all because this lovely Galgo owner said, "Hi, I'm Jacqueline." Thank you, Jacqueline. You gave me such a gift today. And this is exactly such a beautiful example of how signs and symbols work. They're very easy to miss. They're very easy to say, I'm going to drive on to my next thing. But it really is about noticing, asking, and receiving. My invitation for you this week is to consider, has there been a sign, a symbol, a person, a place, a thing that has stayed with you recently, has given you a strong emotional response, or it keeps coming back? If and when something arrives to you, do the inquiry. Ask the questions. Are you trying to get me a message? It is likely you'll get the answer yes. What is the message? What is the deeper meaning? And you will typically find great relief, shifting, healing, and alignment when those messages that have been trying to reach you start to arrive. All right, my dear one, that's a wrap for this week. If you're loving this episode, and I truly hope you are, hit subscribe wherever it is you listen. Go over to the show notes, leave a rating, leave a review. I will read your words on the air. And if you screenshot that review and email it to me, I will send you a bespoke intuitive gift. Now, some of you have enrolled in a lot of stuff of mine. So if you are a member of my community, I will look you up to see, well, what has this person already purchased from me or already enrolled in? And I will make sure to give you a present that you've never received before, that you haven't already purchased, that is high in value. It's going to be at least $100 value or higher. And it's something that you really need on an intuitive level in this moment. So if you haven't left me a rating and review and you've been meaning to, please, I invite you to do so today, and I will receive your words with love and gratitude. And this wraps up our beautiful, wonderful 5-part series exploring and deep diving into your intuitive languages. I hope that you receive something super deep and meaningful from these episodes. And as always, until next time, may your soul guide the way.